Okay, so today we're going to start reading The Most Dangerous Game by Richard Connell, and we are going to be answering reading questions as we read through. Sorry, my dog's like digging around in the background. Okay, so this is your assignment for Most Dangerous Game reading notes. At the very top here, I have linked the text to The Most Dangerous Game. This is also linked in your announcement, and it's also in your module, so you've got tons of places to find it. So the first thing you want to do is click on the text, and that is going to download it for you. And then you can just, if you're using Chrome, which I very highly recommend that you do, then you just click it right there, and it's going to pop open in a tab next to your questions. Okay, so now I just have to find where my questions are. Here they are. Okay, so when you're reading, you're going to stop at the questions in the margin and answer them on this document. Make sure that you write in complete sentences to receive full credit, and you do not have to answer letter M. So you can see that I have left M off of the list here of questions. Now today, we are not going to be reading the whole story. You're just reading part of it, so don't worry about having to read the entire thing. I do also have audio linked here so that if it helps you to listen to the story as you read along, you're welcome to do that. I am going to read through the first couple of pages with you, and then if you want to keep going with the audio, you are more than welcome to. So let's go over and look at the text. So you might remember that our focus for this unit is on conflict. So a lot of the questions that we answer are going to be related to conflict. This little beginning piece here in the textbook says, in the rising action of a story, a writer generally introduces one or more conflicts that the main character faces. As the rising action unfolds, complications arise that intensify the conflicts and add to the reader's sense of suspense. So plot events are not always linear, which means that it's not always like directly one thing after the other. Sometimes you might have some foreshadowing, some flashbacks, some flash forwards that also helps to heighten the suspense and the tension as the conflict builds. So you're going to be thinking about the conflicts that the main character faces and the complications that arise as we are reading through this story. Keep in mind as well the background to the story, which is big game hunting. We talked about that in the presentation. So hunting for big game was a popular sport among wealthy people in the early 20th century. So that would be like the 1900s, early 1900s. And the two main characters in our story are experienced hunters in search of a greater challenge. So we are going to get started with reading. A couple things that I want to point out to you before we start. So your directions say to stop at the questions in the margins. So you will see as you're reading that you come along and you reach a point where you see a letter, right? So this letter A, and then if you come over into the side, you'll see A and then a question. Same thing as we continue on down. Here's B, here's C, and so on. And you can see they're right there in the text, and you stop and answer those questions. So these questions are meant to be answered as you're reading, okay, not at the end. So you want to make sure that you read these questions as you're going, because some of them ask you to make like predictions about what's going to happen next. And so you don't want to answer them all at the end, because then there's nothing really to predict. You already know. So for today, you are going to be answering through letter E, which is the end of page 63, okay? So you will answer letter E, A through E, okay? And I'm going to read the first page with you and a little bit of the second page up to letter B, okay? And then you can do the other three on your own. All right, a couple other things to note. These down here are called footnotes. And so in the text, if you ever see like this little number 1 here, it's kind of hard to see, but this little guy, that tells you that there is a footnote that explains more. So in this case, it explains that Rio means Rio de Janeiro, a city on the coast of Brazil. There's also going to be vocab words that are identified in the margins. Some of those are the same as vocab words that we went over, and some of them might be different. So if you aren't sure what they mean, feel free to check out the definitions there. Okay, so let's get started. This is The Most Dangerous Game by Richard Connell. Off to the Sorry, first words and I already messed up. Off there to the right somewhere is a large island, said Whitney. It's rather a mystery. What island is it? Rainsford asked. The old charts call it Ship Trap Island, Whitney replied. A suggestive name, isn't it? Sailors have a curious dread of the place. I don't know why. Some superstition. I can't see it, remarked Rainsford, trying to peer through the dank tropical night that was palpable as it pressed its thick, warm blackness in upon the yacht. You've good eyes, said Whitney with a laugh, and I've seen you pick off a moose moving in the brown fall bush at 400 yards, but even you can't see 4 miles or so through a moonless Caribbean night. Nor 4 yards, admitted Rainsford. It's like moist black velvet. It will be light enough in Rio, promised Whitney. We should make it in a few days. I hope the Jaguar guns have come from Purdy's. We should have some good hunting up the Amazon. Great sport hunting. The best sport in the world, agreed Rainsford. For the hunter, amended Whitney, not for the Jaguar. Don't talk rot, Whitney, said Rainsford. You're a big game hunter, not a philosopher. Who cares how a Jaguar feels? Perhaps the Jaguar does, observed Whitney. Bah, they've no understanding. Okay, so let's stop there because we have a question. So the question says to reread lines 16 through 21, what can you conclude about Rainsford from his conflict with Whitney? So Rainsford and Whitney are having a disagreement here, and we're going to have to infer some things about Rainsford based on that. Before we talk about that, though, I do want to go back and just kind of recap the first page here. So you have your 2 main characters, right? Rainsford and Whitney. There's my 2. Now, these are 2 men, okay? Whitney and Rainsford are their last names. So don't get confused. Every year I have somebody that writes this big long answer about the girl on the boat, and there's no girl on the boat. Whitney is a man, that's his last name, okay? And Rainsford is his last name. So they are big game hunters. And where are they headed? Think in your mind, where are they and where are they headed? Good. So hopefully you saw in the text that they are in the middle of the Caribbean Sea, and they are headed for Rio. So that's Rio de Janeiro, which is off the coast of Brazil. They're headed to Rio because they are going to pick up some Jaguar guns, and then they are going to go up into the Amazon rainforest and do some hunting. So if you remember, we talked about how big game hunters like to go to these exotic locations and hunt these exotic animals, right? Jaguars and what have you. Okay. And you can really kind of visualize here what this environment is like. Okay, they're on this yacht. It's super humid, right? It talks about this thick, warm blackness that is pressing in on the yacht. So if you can imagine, I mean, we know it gets pretty humid here in Missouri. You can kind of almost imagine what that feels like when it feels so hot that it's so humid you can almost touch the air, right? Because it's that humid. So it's that, plus it's just pitch black, right? They're in the middle of the ocean. Nothing is around them, okay? Also notice one little kind of hint here at the beginning. They talk about this island. So somewhere there's a large island and it's kind of a mystery. And we learned that the sailors have a curious dread of the place, which means that they're scared of it for some reason. So this is sort of some hints of things that might happen in a little bit in the story. So just kind of keep it in the back of your mind. Okay, so now back to our question. We're going to reread lines 16 through 21, and we're going to see what can we conclude about the type of person that Rainsford is based on what he is talking about with Whitney. So you have your line numbers here. So this is line 10, this is line 20. So that means that 16 starts right here. So Whitney says that hunting is a great sport, and Rainsford says the best sport in the world. Whitney says, well, for the hunter, not for the Jaguar, right? So Whitney's kind of pointing out yeah, we enjoy it because we're the hunters, but for the people that get hunted, or for the animals that get hunted, it's not so great for them. It's great for us as the hunters, but the animals, it's actually not so great for them. And Rainsford really doesn't want to hear this, right? He says, don't talk rot. So he's just you're being ridiculous. You're a big game hunter, not a philosopher, so who cares how a Jaguar feels? And Whitney says, well, maybe a Jaguar cares, right? A Jaguar probably cares that they're getting hunted and that they're being scared and, having to fight for their lives. And Whitney says, no, they have no understanding. So he basically means, no, Jaguars don't understand what's happening to them. They don't have any feelings. So what kind of a person does Rainsford sound like he is based on that conversation? Pause the video if you need to and take a second to think about it. Does he seem like the type of person who is kind and caring and, believes in believes in that everyone has feelings and that animals are an important part of our world? Does he seem like the type of person who thinks that he's kind of the best and he's on top and it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks or feels? Does he seem like he is nervous or scared? Does he seem like he's egotistical, stubborn? Like, what kind of a person do you think that he seems like? Okay, and then we are going to answer that question. Remember that if you want to pop out the notes, you can click on the blue link here, and that will pull them out into their own tab. Okay, so here I am on my notes, and so I'm going to answer on letter A what I have, what I can conclude about Rainsford based on the conversation. So to me, Rainsford seems kind of egotistical, right? Kind of full of himself, and he doesn't seem like he's very caring to other animals or to the fact that maybe animals might have feelings or, might sense fear or might, just kind of have the same thoughts and feelings that humans do. So I'll try to make that sound like a sentence instead of just random thoughts. So you want to make sure that you use a complete sentence. And the easiest way to do that, I think, is to kind of restate the question. So I'm going to say, based on the argument with Whitney, Rainsford seems to be egotistical and insensitive to the feelings of animals. Okay, so egotistical meaning he's full of himself, and insensitive to the feelings of animals meaning that he doesn't think that they have feelings and doesn't really care. Okay, so that's really all you have to do. It doesn't have to be a huge, long, drawn out thing. You can write as much as you want, of course, but I'm just trying to show you that it's one simple sentence is plenty for most of these. Okay, let's keep reading. Even so this is Whitney talking. Even so, I rather think they understand one thing, fear. The fear of pain and the fear of death. Nonsense, laughed Rainsford. This hot weather is making you soft, Whitney. Be a realist. The world is made up of two classes, the hunters and the hunties. Luckily, you and I are hunters. Do you think we've passed that island yet? I can't tell in the dark. I hope so. Why? Asked Rainsford. The place has a reputation, a bad one. Cannibals? Suggested Rainsford. Hardly. Even cannibals wouldn't live in such a godforsaken place. But it's gotten into sailor lore somehow. Didn't you notice that the crew's nerves seemed a bit jumpy today? They were a bit strange, now you mention it. Even Captain Nielsen. Yes, even that tough-minded old Swede who'd go up to the devil himself and ask him for a light. Those fishy blue eyes held a look I never saw there before. All I could get out of him was, "This place has an evil name among seafaring men, sir." Then he said to me very gravely, "Don't you feel anything?" As if the air about us was actually poisonous. Now you mustn't laugh when I tell you this. I did feel something like a sudden chill. So now we have another letter, and so we are going to stop and look and see what we're going to be doing. So we're going to be predicting. We're going to reread lines 30 through 41, and we're going to notice that even a hard-boiled sailor is fearful of this island. What do you predict might happen on the island? So this is a prediction. There's truly no right or wrong answers. Sorry, my dog is like chewing on our table. There's no right or wrong answers. So it's just your prediction. So let's kind of go back through and talk about what we're looking at here. So Whitney says that he thinks that animals understand fear. Rainsford still says no way. There's hunters and there's the people. The hunters and the hunties, the two classes of people. But luckily, we're the hunters, so he doesn't even worry about the animals that are being hunted. So then they're talking about this island that they talked about at the very beginning. And Whitney says that it has a bad reputation. And Rainsford asks, are there cannibals that live there? Now, cannibals, if you don't know, are people who eat other people, right? And Rainsford says, hardly, Whitney says, hardly, even cannibals wouldn't live there. So this has to be a place that is so bad that even people who eat other people wouldn't live there. Okay, so there's got to be something crazy going on there. And then he says, didn't you notice that the crew was kind of nervous? Even the ship's captain was nervous. And so there's something about this place that they say that it's evil, right? And even then Whitney says, don't laugh, but like I even felt a little bit like, ooh, scared, right? So you're going to make a prediction. What do you think might be going on this island? And again, you can write anything you want that you think is going on there. Remember that it's worse than cannibals, so think of what could possibly be even worse than that. For your sentence, you want to make sure, again, that you are writing a complete sentence. So you might want to do something like, I predict that, and then ... don't put ... Put what you predict, okay? I'm not going to put a prediction down. A, because I know what happens, and B, because I want to see what your predictions are, okay? So I predict that would be the way that you could start that sentence and then just finish it out and put a period at the end, okay? All right, so that is where I am going to leave off with you. So you are going to continue to read this page, stop at the bottom and answer letter C. Continue on the next page, stop here, answer letter D, which again is a prediction, right? What do you think will happen next? And then read to the end of the page and answer letter E. And this is a visualization question. So it's asking what details in the passage help you to visualize the scene. So you want to list details that help you paint a picture in your mind. So what are some words that the author uses that help you to sort of imagine what it looks like where they are? So just think about, words that describe the location, okay? All right. If you have questions, please call into the office hours that I mentioned previously. And you can also send me an email, or you can send me a message on Canvas. However you need to get in touch with me, you can. And again, we are just reading through letter E today. So just A through E. You don't need to go any further than that. Okay? All right. Have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you all on Friday.